Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 474. My name is Adam Patterson. With me today, we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Oh, hi. Hello.
This week on the show, we'll be taking a look at the crime drama Boston Strangler, which is available on Hulu right now. We'll also be going over some of what we've been watching on the watch list and this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That'd be great. With that said, I think we can just get straight in. This is written and directed by Matt Ruskin, and I have a synopsis here. Loretta McLaughlin was a reporter who first connected the murders and broke the story of the Boston Strangler. She and Gene Cole challenged the sexism of the early 1960s to report on the city's most notorious serial killer. Kevin, we'll start with you. What were your initial impressions of Boston Strangler?
What do you think they were?
They gotta be close to me. There's no way that you watched this movie and were enthralled from beginning to end. There's just no way.
There's no way. We know each other too well.
Yeah.
Too well. We've been friends for far too long.
Well, come on. I have a hard time believing that a lot of people were like, yeah, this movie's where it's at. This movie is firing on all cylinders, boy. I was looking up this Matt Ruskin character because I'm like, who directed this? It's not directed very well at all. And so I was like, well, who did it? And so Matt Ruskin, he previously did Crown Heights, which I didn't see. But yeah, he doesn't have a very large filmography. The thing is, when you're presenting a movie like this that is ripped from the headlines, this is based on a true story. You don't want to deviate too much from the actual offense. And the way that you can deal with a fairly boring story, frankly, is by presenting interesting, captivating characters and bolstering that with captivating, interesting visuals, good music, good cinematography, etc. Where this movie fails is on all of those levels. It is a dreadfully boring story. It doesn't do much with the characters. I think that Keira Knightley and Carrie Coon's characters I think that these people in real life were probably very interesting people. But I feel like that both of them were so underwritten in this, especially Carrie Coon's character, who, at first you think that she's going to be like a main character, but she's like sidelined the whole time. And like, you don't really, there's no depth to either one of them. And on the visual side of things, this is like the most bland, boring thing ever. So for me, this was like a complete failure.
100%. This is it's visually, it's exactly what I expected it to be. It is incredibly drab. Everything is grayscale. You're doing this true crime, by the book type thing. So there's no visual flair whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean they're going for like
I wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah, they're going for that like Zodiac color palette,
Mm-hmm. It feels like if you mixed Zodiac with, and this is what I thought going into it. I felt like A, this is going to be a Zodiac ripoff, right? B, instead of being a straight like Zodiac ripoff, they're going to try and like meld it with Spotlight. And that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
But the main criticism, and the main criticism for me, I mean, outside of that, because of course that plays into it, the grayscale, there's no visuals whatsoever. It's just a very by the book, like chronological order type deal going through. But it just kept fucking going.
Yeah.
It just went and went and went.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very impressed if this was able to hold the attention of most audiences for an hour and 52 minutes. Because, I mean,
That's all it was.
it totally lost me. Like, yeah, I mean, it feels very long.
Because I swear to God, at one point I thought I had been watching it for like 2 hours,
It feels,
and I checked the time, and I still had 20 minutes left.
yeah.
I didn't understand.
Yeah, this one feels like a made-for-TV movie to me. Like, an old school made-for-TV movie back when, like, made-for-TV movies were not very good. Like, that's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, but it's insane, right? Though, because like it has that feel, but this cast that you have,
Oh, yeah. Great
and
cast.
you can tell in the production design that they spent money.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the production design,
Which
you
is
know,
insane.
the costuming, the old offices and cars and everything. Like, it feels very authentically, you know, mid 60s. But yeah, oh boy, just not a lot going on here, man. Just there's like really nothing going on. I didn't really know the Boston Strangler story like too much, so maybe if I had known it, I just wouldn't have watched this. But I don't know. Like they managed to make a serial killer thriller movie that is based on a true story. They somehow made it very dull, which I feel like is kind of hard given the source material.
Yeah, and I also have this. I don't know if this is a part of me that, or one of the reasons that I checked out, you know, partly into this movie. A, I was mildly interested because I really don't know much about the Boston Strangler. So, well, that should play in its favor. I really don't know anything, so I'm interested to learn. But the thing that didn't work for me, or I guess is like a personal thing, and this is born out of I've listened to a couple, or tried to listen to like a couple of true crime podcasts or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and all of it just feels wrong to me. Like people just like shooting the shit about like serial killers and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't like it. I don't like. I think I just don't like it.
Well,
Any art about like real life serial killers. I'm just like, it just rubs me the wrong way.
well, the funny thing is that they sort of touched on that in the movie when the guy who confessed to being the Boston Strangler, like, you know, cut this big deal, like book deal and stuff like that. Which didn't that like somebody, I don't remember who, but there was some big criminal where that happened and they like passed a law that prevented people from
Yeah,
profiting off their crimes.
yeah.
Okay.
I forget who it was exactly.
It was
but
somebody big. It was like a big profile like person. I don't know if it was Manson or when did yeah, it might have been Manson.
the only interesting aspect about this movie, which is just inherently in there because of the circumstances, is there's a movie I'll talk about later on in the watch list portion that me and my wife watched, and she was kind of talking about, you know, this overwhelming sense that women have of being like kind of afraid to be at home, and she was kind of thinking like, where does that come from? And obviously, I kind of pointed out, I was like, well, it seems like a lot of women got killed like during the 60s and the 70s. Like every serial killer just killed like women that were alone constantly all the time. So that was like the only thing that, like, of course, I'm watching this movie and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that things weren't always like that, you know, like people left their doors unlocked at night and like hitchhiking was like a normal thing. Everybody would hitchhike everywhere. And it wasn't until
Yeah, because it was so easy to just be like, hey, I'm here to take a look at that water leak you have. Or, hey, I'm here to look at your radiator.
yeah. And then just murder.
Murder. always murder, which they kind of touch on at the end, where it's like, your Albert DeSalvos have been men kill women. They have been, and they will.
Yep.
But man, I mean, like you said, this is just. I don't, at the end of watching them, just like, did we need the time and resources for this to come to this? Like this is the end product. We've just wasted a ton of time and money and resources, just so much for nothing.
Yeah, it was just. It was. I was looking forward to a solid procedural type, and I do like movies like Spotlight, where I like journalist movies, investigative journalism type movies, but man, this one was just such a slog, which is a real shame because like we talked about before, it has a really solid cast. I like Keira Knightley, Carrie Coon, Chris Cooper's in there, and David Dastmalchian, who was good in the really small amount that he had to work with. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Also, like you said, like, because at a certain point I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're going to do more of a focus on the journalist. But like you said, they're so underwritten. They're very surface level representations of real people. They're like, wow, you're not even doing that portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your standard, exactly what you would expect. It's the 60s misogyny, and the husband being like, you're working too much. You need to be at home with the kids, or whatever. And there's just not a lot of an exploration into who these women are, aside from women who are doing something that was not typically done by women at the time. Like, they're more than that. Like, I think that it's important to recognize that, sure. But they were people too, and I think that the movie just didn't do a great job of exploring who these people were.
Just a waste of my goddamn time.
Yeah, let's go ahead and give it a score. Kevin, what are you going to give Boston Strangler?
Boston Strangler. It's going to get like a 2.
Yeah, this gets a 2 from me also. I was thinking like maybe like 2.5. I'll say 2.5 because I was originally sitting at a 3, but then our conversation as we were talking, it started dropping.
The first thing I thought of, and I thought of this, like an hour into the 7 hours that this movie is. 1 hour into it, I'm just like, wow, podcast, we're going to have absolutely nothing to talk about.
I know. I thought about that too. I was like, well, this is one of these episodes where we don't have anything to say about this movie because it's just so boring and vanilla.
Yeah, it's dull. It's just insanely dull. Just read about it on the internet. You'll have more enjoyment.
Yeah, just look
on the internet.
Yeah, just look up the Boston Strangler Wikipedia, and there you go.
Done. I'm sure there's a couple articles. They read like the actual articles that these.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that you can find those easily. Read the actual articles. Those are probably way more fascinating than this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not beholden to keeping your eyes peeled to a screen. You can pop it on your phone, step outside, smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, there you go.
You can do whatever you want.
All right, let's move on. Talk about some of what we've been watching. Kevin, it is your turn this week. What you got? What you got for me?
Oh, I got another kind of like nature documentary. Somewhat. All That Breathes. Shonak Sen. This is I think this was up for an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct, sir.
This is about two brothers in New Delhi, India, that their whole lives are devoted to saving kites, the bird.
Mm-hmm.
Kites, black kite, which apparently are just fucking everywhere in India. There's a lot of scenes of just tons of kites flying around, screaming. They're like hawks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is quite good. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's just two guys just spending all their time, all their resources, everything to just save birds, just because they want to. They've just decided that they need to save birds. So they started saving birds in this like little, within their apartment, like in their garage area type, whatever it is. And that's all they do all day, it seems. It's just people keep bringing them birds, mostly kites, but also owls, all sorts of birds. And that's all they do. And it's just kind of them doing that against the backdrop of like rising violence within India, pollution, all sorts of stuff going on. And it's just them save birds. That's it. And
Yeah.
it's just beautifully shot.
Yeah, this movie seems very wholesome.
It's pretty good.
Cool. That's All That Breathes. I saw Cocaine Bear.
There you go. There's a nature.
It's a
nature doc.
Sort of a nature doc, right? So this is directed by Elizabeth Banks. The movie itself, I thought, was fine. There were some pretty funny moments to it. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect with that title. It's about a bear. So there's a bit of a snafu with some drugs where a whole bunch of cocaine gets dropped into the forest from a plane, and this black bear gets a hold of the cocaine, and she gets hooked. She gets hooked on the cocaine, and has an insatiable hunger for the cocaine, and it's about a bunch of people who are just trying to get out of there, and avoid getting killed by the cocaine bear. It's got there's a little bit of some Tremors vibes that I was getting from this, and I mean, certainly it's not on the same level as Tremors, but the thing that this has that Tremors doesn't is like really over the top gore, which was done pretty well. Like, it was pretty funny. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think Elizabeth Banks needs to work on her directing. I don't think that this movie's very well directed at all. It's definitely a bit rough around the edges, but it's still fun. I would put it up there with like Piranha 3D, like kind of one of those where it's not like, we're not like in Sharknado territory or anything like that. So yeah. This is more like Piranha 3D or Anaconda, one of those where it's like, it's funny, it's goofy, but it's still a horror movie at the end of the day, sort of. So, I don't know. I'd give it a light recommend. It was pretty entertaining.
I would hope so. I mean, if your movie's called Cocaine Bear, at least it should be entertaining.
Yeah.
Right?
Decent score. Mark Mothersbaugh does the score. And I don't know if this was the last role for Ray Liotta, but certainly one of the last. And Margot Martindale was great in it. She was really funny. And Isaiah Whitlock Jr., it was hilarious. Good, really, really solid cast.
Let's get I guess we'll keep the animal thing going. I saw EO, the donkey movie.
This was also an Oscar contender.
Indeed it was. This is playing on Criterion. So I was like, finally, I'm going to check out this donkey movie. And this is sad as hell. This is just a really sad fucking movie.
I had a feeling that it was going to be really sad, so that's why I kind of avoided it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, like, I didn't really look up like reviews or anything for this movie. I just knew that people liked it, right? My wife wanted to see it, as well. And she was telling me that people said that, it's kind of like life affirming, and it's a happy movie. It's a good movie. I was like, oh, well, that's good, because I was kind of thinking it would be sad. I just have that, for whatever it is, my connection to donkeys is just like, oh, it's got to be sad if it's a movie about a donkey, because they're just like used, really,
Yeah, yeah, they're like a tool, really.
Yeah, they're just like I don't know, and that's what it is. It's EO is in the circus, and he has this routine that he does with this young woman where she dances, and he's kind of a part of it, and she loves the hell out of EO, just always caressing him and hugging him, giving him kisses, just treating him incredibly well. And then a law is passed. Circuses has been banned. They're not allowed to use animals, right? So they confiscate all the animals. EO gets snatched up, and then the rest of the movie is him just going to, he goes to a farm, and then he goes somewhere else, and then another farm, and then to another, and it's kind of like his journey from there on out. And the thing about his journey is he's always fucking alone, and it's just sad. He's alone. At one point, he gets the shit beat out of him, and it's just sad. But I will say that it's incredibly well shot. Like, there's certain sequences in this movie that you're just like, I was feeling it, where I was just, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. There is this over reliance on this like strobing red light effect, which the movie starts off with, that I could have done without. Like, it was just a bit too much at times. I can't do the strobing thing. Just a heads up, especially with it being red, like, made it worse.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like it. Just a heads up.
Okay. That's EO on the Criterion Channel. Let's see. I saw The Driver from 1978. It's directed by Walter Hill. This stars Ryan O'Neal as he's a getaway driver. And he ends up. So basically, Bruce Dern is this cop who he's like a hotshot. He's kind of a piece of shit cop who is doing everything he can to bring down the driver. And he the only way he can figure out how to do it is by trying to hire other people who he knows are bank robbers to try to set up the driver. So he ends up arresting this bank robber and says, "Hey, look, I'm going to let you go if you set up a new job, and you hire this driver. And then when you tell him where you want to go, like the drop-off point, I'll be waiting there and I'll arrest him." But of course, this guy's like a criminal. He's not going to do that. So he agrees. He's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." But then he just hires the driver to rob the bank, but the drop-off point he gives completely wrong. So it's this it's kind of this cat and mouse game where Bruce Dern is trying to catch Ryan O'Neal any way he can, and that's pretty much it. Lots of car chases, as you might expect. It's a pretty fun, action-filled movie. A lot of people talk about how this is basically the inspiration for the movie Drive, and it 100% is. Like, there's no denying that Ryan Gosling's character is based off of this character. Like, he doesn't have a name in this. He's just called the driver, and he's very like, he doesn't have like really any personality. He's very stoic, keeps to himself, doesn't talk a lot. But there are definitely some differences between the two movies, but I think that you can very clearly see the inspiration in Drive from this movie. But yeah, it's awesome. Definitely recommend it, especially if you like, 70s crime movies. Definitely check it out.
It's just insane to me that as a police officer, I got to get the driver.
Yeah.
People actually robbing the banks. Like, fuck, I'll use them as pawns because I gotta get the driver, the guy that's not hurting anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's the whole see, like Bruce Dern is such an asshole in this movie. He's got this like chip on his shoulder, and it gets under his skin that this driver is involved in so many robberies, and he keeps getting away, like no matter what. Like this guy's never been caught, and he's been involved in like countless heists or whatever, and just Bruce Dern just cannot stand it.
Yeah, it's just that ego thing,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Him just like setting up numerous bank robberies to try and get the driver.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he never can. Just banks getting robbed left and right,
And yeah,
all because of him.
and the setup, like they literally rob the bank and he lets it happen.
Yeah,
And one of the guys gets killed. One of the robbers gets killed during the robbery. And it's just like Bruce Dern's like, you know what? I don't even care. I just need the driver.
I just also like the idea of the bank robbers like not wanting to do this. He's just like, I need you to rob this fucking bank because I got to get the driver. And they're like, we really don't want to rob banks anymore. Like, we're kind of tired of doing this.
Well, it is actually kind of a funny. It's like a funny storyline or piece where Ryan O'Neal's like, I'm not working with this guy, like because he knows the guy who's trying to do this job, and he's like, I'm not working with you. Like you're a hothead, you're violent, you're an asshole. I'm not dealing with you. And so like the guy keeps going back to Bruce Dern, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. Like he's refusing. He's refusing. I don't know how I can, hire this guy. He keeps saying no, it doesn't matter. So like that was like a whole thing too, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch this.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I know you're not a huge fan of car chases, and honestly, like the car chases in this are really good for the time. I mean, lots of cars flipping and getting destroyed and stuff. There's a really awesome scene with Ryan O'Neal in a parking garage when they first hire him, and they're like, how do we know you're the best or whatever? And he's like, give me the keys. And he gets in the car, that it's their car that they brought, and he just destroys it. He just drives around in the parking lot and just smashes into all the different walls that he can. And the one scene, he just opens the door and then backs into a pillar and rips the door off. And he's like, and I think he goes like, you might want to take that in for a tune-up before the job or something. It's so funny. Yeah, it's awesome.
Love it. The only other thing I watched is Watcher.
Okay.
A movie called Watcher.
Yeah, I saw this.
Chloe Kuno. This is the movie that I kind of briefly touched upon during our Boston Strangler discussion.
This is better than Boston Strangler, I'll tell you that right now.
100%. 100. This is a slow burn, and yes, I could see it being described as relatively boring because there's not a whole lot that's happening with this. It's all kind of like leading towards that build-up. And, this is Mika Monroe. She moves to, Romania with her husband. He gets a new job in Romania, or gets a promotion. She's there. She feels completely isolated. She doesn't really know the language. She's alone during the day. He's always at work. And of course, there's a guy across the courtyard or whatever, big windows in this apartment, and he's always seeming to be watching her. Like he's standing at his window, just looking right at her. And it's creeping her out. Of course, there's also a serial killer on the loose in Romania, because of course there is. And she just essentially figures that they're one and the same. They're the same person. And she starts being followed by this guy. And she gets really concerned. But of course, she's thinking maybe she's being paranoid. Her husband's kind of supportive at first. And then, of course, he kind of gets tired of it. And it just all essentially culminates to this end piece, which I thought was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the journey there was a bit I don't want to say lackluster, but it was just like uneventful. But man, the way that that ending only really worked with it being so uneventful beforehand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it made more of an impact.
It's pretty shocking, and I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely recommend this. I was surprised by this. I didn't really have high hopes going into it, but I was surprised.
Yeah, it's good. I would recommend it too. This is available a lot of places. It's on Hulu, it's on Shudder. Then you can rent it on other services too. Again, that's Watcher from last year. I saw Southern Comfort. This is another Walter Hill one. I don't know, for whatever reason I was in a Walter Hill mood this week.
No.
So Southern Comfort it came out in 1981. It's about a group of National Guard troops, and they're going for like a weekend training exercise in the Louisiana swamps. But it turns out that these guys are just like, they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. And so they got all the guns and stuff, right? They're all kitted out. They got the equipment. And they're essentially like these guys, like these sort of prepper militia type guys where they just want to shoot somebody. They just want to kill people and play G.I. Joe, you know? And they don't have real bullets. So they have real guns, but they're loaded with blanks because it's going to all be part of this training exercise. Well, when they get down there, they find these canoes, and they're like, hey, let's just take these canoes. Like, we don't see anybody around. Let's just take the canoes, whatever. So they take these canoes, and turns out it's these Cajuns who it was their canoes, and they start following these army guys, or these National Guard guys, rather. And one of the idiots starts like shooting at the Cajuns, and they're blanks, but of course they don't know that. So the Cajuns then retaliate by killing one of them. And then from that point forward, it just becomes this, dangerous game of like the Cajuns start hunting these National Guard guys and killing them one by one, setting traps in the swamp. And they are basically trying to get out alive. It's awesome. It's got Keith Carradine in it, Powers Booth, Fred Ward. It's kind of I think that it all is sort of an allegory for the events of Vietnam. It takes place in 1973. So this is, hot off the heels of Vietnam, and I think that there's a lot of deliberate parallels that are drawn there. But it's great. Highly recommend it. Man, good. Walter Hill is just such an underrated director, I think. Maybe not. Maybe he's not underrated at all. Maybe he gets the recognition that maybe people recognize him as a great director, but
he's an eclectic director too, though.
That's what I like. He almost, his like filmography almost reminds me of like a John Carpenter, where you look at their filmography and there's just like really unique stuff going on.
Well, I'm glad to hear it because I've been wanting to see Southern Comfort for a long time.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. Highly worth a watch. I'll mention one more, and that's Alien from L.A. from 1988, directed by Albert Pyun. This is one where it recently, like a couple years ago, I think, or maybe even more recently than that, it got like this Blu-ray remaster, and there was this kind of resurgence of popularity with this movie. This is one of these ones that was kind of forgotten, but then I don't know who released it. It was probably like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or one of those companies. It gained a little bit of a cult status, and So I've been meaning to watch it for a while. It stars Kathy Ireland, and I did not enjoy this movie at all. Like, it's pretty bad, man. Like, it seems kind of cool, but first of all, Kathy Ireland is so annoying in this that it ruins the whole movie. She has the most annoying voice, and they comment on it like she's deliberately making her voice annoying. She's doing it on purpose because they comment on it multiple times in the movie, but I guess what they weren't really thinking about was the fact that the audience also had to hear her make this voice. And it's just so awful and grating. But basically what this is like, she plays a high schooler from L.A. who, her father supposedly has died. And he's like I think he's like in Africa or something like that. He's an archaeologist, and she goes to like find him and discovers that he was trying to like dig a hole to the center of the earth, and she ends up falling through it and discovering that there's like a whole world down there. It's like a whole civilization. But the funny thing is, it's like sort of just like a dystopian, like almost like a Mad Max type situation down there. And, you know, there's like different gangs and stuff like that. And it's just, it's ridiculous. It's goofy. Maybe a little Tank Girl-esque too, since we were just talking about that last week. But yeah, I just couldn't get into it. I liked some of the aspects of it, but man, it was a little bit too over the top for me. So I can't really recommend Alien from L.A. I guess if you're really into like cheesy 80s like sci-fi comedies, then maybe check it out. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't funny. I'll tell you that. It is not funny at all. It's just annoying. Let's take a look at what we have in theaters this week. The big one here is John Wick Chapter 4. I'm pretty excited for this. Now, I know that you're not a John Wick fan, which is weird. Not that you're not a fan, but if I remember correctly, you haven't seen any of the John Wick movies? Is that...
I saw the first one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, you saw the first one.
I just never watched any of the other ones. And it's not that I don't want to. I just haven't. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that they get better and better, actually. The sequels are just as good, if not better, than the first one. So, yeah, it is, I think, quickly becoming one of the best action franchises ever. I mean, currently, people are loving Chapter 4. I can't think of another franchise that has action franchise that has had as much acclaim as the John Wick series. So
true.
Yeah, it's a great series. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'll probably go see this. All right, let's see what we have on VOD. Starting on the 21st, we have Children of the Corn. This is a remake or reboot, I guess, of the original one. I'll probably give this a look, even though I have like absolutely zero expectations for it. It's probably bad, but see, the thing is, like, I watched the entire Children of the Corn franchise like a few years ago, and I didn't like any of them. So I don't know why I'm like slightly interested in this. I guess I like the idea. I like the concept of Children of the Corn, but the movies, I feel like, just never quite capitalized on the idea. We have Tomorrow's Hope coming out. I think might be a documentary. We got Wildflower. We have We Lost Our Human. That's going to be on Netflix. That's one of their interactive ones, I think, like a choose your own adventure type thing. It's a cartoon. It's for kids. We have Kubrick by Kubrick. It's a documentary. On the 23rd, we have Timescape.
Ooh.
Wrong place, wrong time. That's a kid's movie.
Timescape.
It's a kid's movie from the looks of it. And then on the 24th we have Followers, which is a horror movie. We got Infinite Sea, that's on Amazon Prime. We got that's it. Looks like that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all I see on here. There might be some more that I missed. On Blu-ray this week, we got Megan coming out. Light recommend for Megan. We got Babylon, the Damien Chazelle one, that I heard not great things. I still haven't seen it because I know that it's like super long, and I just haven't been ready to dedicate that time to it.
I have no interest in that movie. And for the longest time, honestly, I thought it was like some sort of internet joke.
I think that it's like, to me, it seems like it's one of those Southland Tales / what was the one the It Follows guy did?
Oh, yeah.
It's like one of those movies where it's like really grand in scope and scale, but like is a huge bomb.
Yeah, I like, people talked about it, but I don't think anyone's ever actually seen it. I don't think this movie exists, this Babylon. I don't think it does.
I think it might be on HBO Max.
Get out of here.
I think it is. Dragon Slayer from 1981. We have Dr. Giggles from 1992, the classic.
Oh, hell yeah, Dr. Giggles.
I'll never forget the first time I saw Dr. Giggles. There's a scene where he's hiding in someone's body and cuts himself out of somebody's body, and it was like the craziest scene. That movie's pretty wild. Let's see. Crazy People from 1990. We got Critical Condition from 1987, starring Richard Pryor. Suzu River from 2000. We got Final Exam from 1981. Jujutsu Kaisen 0. It's an anime movie. That's a pretty good series, though, I gotta say. Not super into anime, but I liked that one. That's pretty much it. What do we have on Criterion? Anything?
We got one, and that's David Lynch.
Yeah.
2006, Inland Empire.
Yeah. I was not into that one.
I'm going to finally maybe watch this movie.
I just couldn't get into it, man. I really tried to. It's so long and dry.
I'm curious because it's a 4K restoration, HD.
Well, I mean, the movie
isn't the whole thing this movie shot on video?
It's super ugly. Like the movie, it's like shot on digital, and it's just so awful looking.
That's what I mean. Like, what does that translate to in 4K?
I don't know.
And why? Why do that?
Yeah, I mean, because that's the interesting thing is like with film, when a movie is shot on film, you can easily translate it to 4K, but if it's shot on digital, like that's the best you're going to get, like you can try to clean it up, but you're not going to get it as good as with a film.
Well, and I just feel like that you don't want to clean it up. Like that's probably what he was going for.
I don't know about that. When you see it, I think you'll be like, I don't know if it was an aesthetic choice. I think it was more of like a cost thing, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he did want to do it, but it was a bad choice either way because it looks horrible. All right. I think that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @FilmPulseNet and @FilmPulseKevin. If you have a moment, take a minute to review us on iTunes. That'd be great. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.